AI is going to be an integral part of all of our lives, ready or not, like it or not. Regulators and tech insiders are grappling with how AI could supercharge the power of existing tech, things like social media. I recently sat down with Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen to do just that. She's the author of a brand new book out this week. It's called The Power of One: How I Found the Strength to Tell the Truth and Why I Blew the Whistle on Facebook. Frances, thanks for being here. I want to start with misinformation itself right now, because it is a hotly debated topic. I would say, unlike it was 2 or 3 years ago, Facebook and others, as you know, they deemed the Wuhan COVID lab leak a misinformation element. They restricted accounts because of that. You had Twitter famously banning the Hunter Biden laptop story. Turned out it was legit. Critics say folks who work on misinformation tend to fall on the left. They tend to think alike. They tend to have the same heroes and villains. Has misinformation been weaponized?
You know, since my very first Senate testimony, I've been very clear about the fact that we've been basically sold a bill of goods when it comes to thinking about misinformation. That we've been told there are these magical AIs that are going to pluck the good and bad things from, they're going to take down the bad things and leave up the good things. And like you said, one of the inherent problems with that is that someone has to be the umpire. Someone has to call the balls and strikes. But the larger problem is that those systems don't scale. You know, in order to get even something as low as a 10% error rate, 10% is pretty darn high. They miss almost all the things that even we could agree on as being violating, things like dangerous, viral videos, things like that, things where we would probably have consensus about taking them down. Even then, to get the systems with low enough error rates, they miss most of the good things they should be taking down. But the second thing is they're cost ineffective to translate into the number of languages that exist around the world. The things that we should be doing are designing for safety up front. That's things like, how should virality work in a system like this? Should we have moments for people to reflect before they share? Something as simple as saying, requiring someone to click a link before they reshare it can reduce misinformation by 15%. And no one chose what was good or bad.
You talk about umpires, and in your book you discuss personal accountability at Facebook basically not existing, especially when it comes to bad outcomes. Decisions are made by committee. You say they, quote, fetishized consensus, which my eyes kind of opened when I read that. And at the same time, people have said Mark Zuckerberg is running this fiefdom. Really, he has a board, he has shareholders, 100%. But it's him. Is it too much of a democracy? Is it too much of a monarchy? Which is it?
Well, that's the thing is Facebook has an ideology, right? Like all software companies do, all technologies do. And at Facebook, they have this belief that they have a system of management that allows everyone to act freely. It's completely objective. As long as the metrics go up, your idea is better than someone who maybe didn't drive the metrics up. Ignoring the fact that all metrics only capture the level of complexity that's designed into those systems. So in the case of Facebook's, a lot of the changes that I talk about in the book, Facebook went from just trying to maximize how much time you spent on these sites to trying to use you as a way to incentivize other people to make content. That when they prioritize content that got more engagement, more clicks, every time you leave that little like, it stimulates other people to make more content. What I talk about in the book is right now, Mark Zuckerberg has about 55%, maybe 56% of all the voting shares, all the votes when it comes to Facebook. That means he's the chairman and he's the CEO. He has no boss except for himself. And Mark wants to believe that all they need is this kind of management by metrics. But it blinds them to when they do need to have human judgment in the loop.
Social media almost looks quaint at this point. It's like the prom queen driving a minivan in some ways, compared to AI, which seems like the cutting edge. This is the thing now. People are excited. They're terrified. This could be mass extinction. What do you make of that, AI, and everything you know about tech?
So I always like to say there are short-term, high-probability dangers of AI. There are longer-term, lower probability dangers of AI, even if they might have higher consequences. The short-term dangers of AI are things like labor market displacement. There's a lot of entry-level workers whose jobs are, you can automate or scale up a lot of those entry workers using AI. These are things like, you're just moving into the legal field. You're just moving into a creative field. DALL-E, the generative art things, can make pretty good, clip art style art. That's a lot of what those creative professions, that's how you started your career. We're going to see major consequences there. Or things like social media, in a world where you can generate tens of thousands of very realistic fake people, you can do totally different information operations than ever before. And what I think is going to be super interesting is we are getting distracted talking about AIs like, doing nuclear war, when the much more probable things are those things like, people exploiting the vulnerabilities in social media. But I'll give you an example. We have solutions that don't involve content, but Facebook doesn't want to hear about them. They're things like real people, when they have real relationships, they send messages back and forth. They have networks of friends who engage with each other in coherent ways. This is literally research I did when I was at Facebook. Can we model the influence of people to identify who is a real or a not real, who's an automated person, a robotic person? Mm-hmm. And those kinds of strategies become even more important when suddenly you can have people who sound like real people, whose content looks real. And so I'm hoping one of the benefits we'll get out of, the dangers of AI is we're going to be forced to stop looking at content, stop trying to identify, is this single thing a piece of misinformation? And instead we'll be forced to focus on designing safer systems.
Finally, Frances, we don't want to be blind, especially after reading this book, but we also don't want to become digital hypochondriacs.
Totally.
How are you
100%.
using tech these days?
My top social media is something called Signal. So it's just, encrypted group chats. It's open source, so anyone can read the source code. And I have probably maybe 20 group chats that each have between 10 and 50 people. And one's about the news, and one's about food, and, one's like the person who runs the group chat says it's like the local bar. And that's how I'd say that's my most dominant form of social media. I get to see lots and lots of my friends. I get to hear about things that I'm interested in. But no algorithms direct my attention. Humans direct what I pay attention to. And I think that's a little bit safer than having, AIs decide what you should or shouldn't see.
Yeah. Frances Haugen, author of the new book, The Power of One, How I Found the Strength to Tell the Truth and Why I Blew the Whistle on Facebook. Thanks for chatting with us. I know your life has been turned upside down over the past 2 years, but a very good read here. I hope people will check it out. Thank you.